Well, let's start from the very beginning. What year were you born?
1915,
In New York or Philadelphia?
Philadelphia.
And when your parents emigrated, they immigrated to Philadelphia?
Philadelphia.
Okay. And did both your parents speak Yiddish
Yiddish and Russia.
and Russian?
Russian.
Okay, so that means probably when you were growing up, did they speak good English, a little bit of English?
Very little English.
That's,
Broken.
huh.
Mostly broken.
How old were they when they immigrated?
I think they were like 22, 23.
And did they meet here, or did they
No,
know
they were married.
They were married over there.
My father came over first.
Right.
And then about a year or two later, my mother came over.
Huh.
Without a baby.
No babies over there.
She lost her baby coming
Okay.
over to America.
Okay.
So they had to throw him overboard.
Oh. Huh.
Because they're not allowed to keep dead people on the ship.
Huh.
And she came to America. Then she started all over again.
And you were the first?
No. I was the third.
Okay, who was the first?
Frankie. And I don't know the first one's name.
Okay. And they died as children?
They died at one. Frankie was burnt to death, scalded.
Infants? As an infant?
He was about 3.
Oh.
2. And then I came along, and Aunt Eva came along. And then the rest came along.
Uh-huh. Frankie, that's not a Jewish name, I would have, unless they called him, what, Frankela or something?
Yeah. Well, Frankie,
Yeah.
that was his name.
Okay. And so how old were you when they moved to New York?
Oh, that was about 6 months after I was married.
Okay, so
They all moved. I was like 18 years old.
So your whole childhood you stayed in Philadelphia?
Yeah.
So, and what neighborhood were you living in?
South Philadelphia, then Strawberry Mansion, then Mount Airy.
Well, when you were a child,
When
South
I was
Philadelphia
a child,
and Strawberry Mansion. And that was pretty much all Jewish
Strawberry
neighborhood?
Mansion came later. That was after I was married. Or not after I was married, no. Maybe 13, 14. 15.
Okay. And those days in those neighborhoods, everybody spoke Yiddish, I take it?
No.
No, it wasn't like
no,
Lower East Side?
Always
It was
mixed.
Okay.
Always mixed. But predominantly Jewish.
Okay.
And if it wasn't Jewish, it became Jewish, little by little, as the immigrants came into America. So they settled in certain areas. And mostly everybody was poor at that time.
In the little row houses in South Philadelphia,
Right.
was there always indoor plumbing? As far as you can remember?
As far as I could remember, we always had indoor plumbing.
What about electricity?
Electricity, yeah, we always had
electricity.
Although I do remember on Mildred Street, we had was gas. So evidently it wasn't electricity. They used to, what did you call that? A mantle. Used to put the mantle in.
For lighting?
Light.
Okay. What about for heating?
It was coal.
Coal. So you had like coal stoves.
We had coal stoves and we had coal heaters, I think.
Huh. Now, there were no microwaves? Right?
Never even knew they would ever exist.
No refrigerators that made ice cubes?
Refrigerators. No ice boxes. No refrigerator ice boxes.
And so what are those?
They were a box, you put a piece of ice in and put your food in to keep it cold.
Now, obviously it wasn't very big. It wasn't as big as today's refrigerator.
Used to get a 10-cent piece of ice.
10-cent piece of ice. And when it melted?
It was water.
I mean, what'd you do for another piece?
Oh, no, you always either, the Iceman came around. That's the Iceman came around.
So the Iceman came around, like the mailman would come and
Right.
he'd see who would need
They
ice.
would stand outside, and everybody that needed ice would go out and get a piece.
Okay.
And if you gave them 2 cents more, so they would bring it and put it in your ice box.
Okay. And the ice melted. Did you have to get a new piece every day?
Practically. And there was a little, what do you call it? That the water went into. That the water went into.
Like a drip pan. So that
Drip
had to be
pan.
emptied, of course, and then you put a new piece in.
Right.
Okay. So if you wanted to go buy a piece of meat or a chicken or
We
something.
had to lay it right on top of the ice.
Okay.
And you couldn't keep it more than a day.
Huh. So you couldn't plan ahead
No.
and freeze meats and chickens?
No, You shopped every day.
And what about dairy products?
Anything.
What did-
Milk, you got a quart of milk. You wouldn't think of buying half a gallon or a gallon.
And whether it was meat or dairy or even produce, everything was in walking distance, I think.
Everything was a walk.
Walk outside and there's your stores.
That's right. That's right.
Huh. Washer and dryer? What about
that? Was 20 years later.
Well, what did you do to wash and dry
Oh,
your
yeah, over
clothes?
the tub.
So you would dip it in soapy water.
You'd soak it in soapy water, or you would boil it. Boil your clothes. Get it clean.
And wring it out.
And no, first after you boiled it, you scrubbed it on a washboard. And wring it out and hang it.
Huh. What about the size of the house that you grew up in? Was it as big as your house now, room-wise?
Well, we always had a 6-room house.
Living
Of
room,
course,
dining room?
Yeah, and 3 bedrooms.
Uh-huh.
The most was 3 bedrooms.
Okay.
And nobody owned their home at the time.
Nobody owned their
Very
home.
few.
Everybody rented. Okay.
Very few people owned it.
Remember what you paid a month rent?
Oh, it was something like $10 a month.
$10
That's
a
when
month.
I was a little, very young, 3, 4 years old. And gradually it went to 15, 20, 25. The most I remember anybody paying was like $50 a month.
Okay.
That was a lot of money at the time.
When you were young, what did your father do for a living?
My father worked in a shoe factory.
In Philadelphia.
That's what he done at the beginning. Then he became a waiter. Then he owned a restaurant.
In Philadelphia.
Yeah.
A regular restaurant, a kosher restaurant? Or...
Kosher. And then things got very bad, and he had an uncle that lived in New York, in Brooklyn.
Bad with the Depression? Bad?
That was in 33.
Uh-huh.
And he sold chickens.
The uncle in Brooklyn?
Yeah. In a market. So he said to my father, come out to Brooklyn and you'll open up a chicken market. So the whole family moved to Brooklyn.
Huh.
And I stayed here.
With
In
Gramps?
Philadelphia, yeah.
Okay.
We were only married about 6 months then.
And you were living with your parents?
When we
When you
moved
got
to
married?
Brooklyn.
When you got married?
No, we had our own small apartment.
Okay.
Then Gramps got out of work. And we moved to Brooklyn with the rest of the kids.
Okay.
And we were there about a year.
So your parents first moved with all the kids, and then things got bad as far as depression and work, and so you decided to go there also.
Right. We had no choice.
Okay.
And we stayed there about a year, and I got some kind of a job. I don't even... Where did I work?
Russia.
Where did I work?
Where, in New York?
In New York. I got a job.
Work.
Yeah. I can't remember what I'd done. And we accumulated a few dollars, I think $100 or whatever, and moved back to Philadelphia.
Where is Graham sure to get a job there?
Here, he got a job sorting rags.
Sorting rags. Now, would
Rags sorter.
you move back to South Philadelphia or
No,
Strawberry Mansion?
Strawberry Mansion.
Okay.
Got 2 rooms.
So again, like a rental apartment
Yeah.
place.
I got pregnant about 6 months later. and our life started all over again.
And meanwhile, your siblings are in Brooklyn with your parents.
Yeah.
Okay. And at this time, they have 8 kids, 9 kids.
Well, there were 8 of us left. I was the oldest of all of them. And they stayed there, and they all became very successful.
That's right. You and Bess moved back.
Well, Bess came to me to visit and stay.
Okay.
When she was about 15.
Okay.
And then little by little, everybody got married. They married nice.
So you had your first child
I had my first child.
in a hospital?
Yeah,
In a hospital.
Jewish, the Einstein.
And those days, women weren't given drugs during childbirth, I take it? Everything was natural?
They gave you something.
Yeah. And when you brought the baby home, you had all the disposable diapers?
No way.
Disposable diapers.
No way. No disposable anything. We had to sterilize our nipples and bottles and make our own formula.
No formula in the supermarket.
Uh-uh.
There's probably no supermarket.
And there wasn't really. And I don't even remember. There were diaper service, but it was not disposable diapers.
Right, sure.
And
So people would come up and pick the diapers up.
pick
They
up the
do
bag.
that today.
Yeah.
They
Do
still-
they still
yeah,
do that? Are they cheaper than the other diapers?
They claim almost the same, but you're helping the environment if you go with the cloth diapers.
I think they're healthier than cloth diapers. Well, anyway, and before you knew it, Gramps decided to go in business for himself.
Rag business.
The rag business.
Okay.
And
Have you bought your first home yet? Or are you still renting?
still rent. No, when we bought our first home, he had to quit his job and work for defense
During the war?
during the war. So from making like $15 and $20 a week, he started to make $66 a week.
Okay. Because the jobs that supported the war were high-paying jobs.
They weren't high paying, but they were paying better than the
What he was making.
right
And what did he do during
welding.
Shipyard building.
Philadelphia shipyard welding?
Well, we were like a
Shipyard.
millionaire.
Okay.
So before you knew it, I saved up $300 and bought our first house.
Okay. So now I bought a house less than 2 years ago. When you want to buy a house, they run more computer checks on you for your credit, and if you were late on a bill 3 years ago, you have to have down payments. Did you have to go through all that?
Well, yeah, to a point, because the house was $2,000 and we put down $300.
Okay.
So we had a $1,700 mortgage.
Okay. I know people that pay that a month.
Yeah. And well, he was working for defense,
And-
and he was doing fairly well and considering.
But how did you go about getting a mortgage? You went to the bank.
Well,
and you
the
said,
realtor, no, we went through a realtor,
and
and they took care of
they
it.
took care of it. So as long as there was a job and an income.
Yeah, I don't think there was
Not
any
much of a
problem.
scrutiny.
And our credit was good anyway. Whatever we did take to pay out, like in Gimbel's, we bought a kitchen set, so we paid $1 a week.
Okay.
And we had the Schneider that we bought, what else? Icebox. So we paid 50 cents a week. So our credit was good.
Okay.
And
So you bought the house in Strawberry Mansion then?
and then after a while things got even better.
Now this
So-
was a row house,
Yeah,
once again Jewish neighborhood,
yeah. Strawberry Mansion.
and a lot of shops. People
There were
spoke
just
Yiddish.
walk
and-
out of your house
and
and you were
everything.
right there.
Okay.
I mean, you had your butcher and your eggs, butter and egg store, and you had your fruit store and your meat store. Everything was right there. Then, as time went on, these supermarkets started to open up. So whoever drove or had a car went to the supermarket.
Not everybody had cars.
Not everybody had cars.
And how did people get
And
around?
the ladies didn't drive.
As a matter of a cultural thing, women just didn't drive.
Just
really?
there wasn't very few women drove at the time.
Well, how did you get around? How did everybody get around?
You
if they
didn't have
have a
to get
car?
around.
Everything was walking
Everything
distance.
was right there.
What about entertainment? Movies?
Movies was right
Right
there. Took a walk down to the movie. It was 3 blocks. You'd done a lot of walking.
So unlike today where they'll build a community of just houses and no shopping, back then, houses and shopping were
Everything together.
combined.
But then little by little the malls opened.
In the
The
suburbs.
supermarkets opened. And people started to move out into the suburbs. And we moved from Strawberry Mansion in 50 or 51 to Mount Airy. That was our second house. We lived there about 17 years.
Now this was after your children were done in school?
Well, Paul was in the army
Okay.
when I did. Norma was married, so they were both married. From there, then we moved to the Northeast. But by then I was driving.
Well, you were driving.
I was driving, and
too.
I learned how to drive in 51.
I remember your big, long Buick Wildcat with the white leather seats.
Wasn't that beautiful?
And there was no eating in that car, no matter what.
Couldn't even breathe in that car.
Let me ask you a couple questions. When your kids were young and in elementary school, what do you remember about that? The school was walking distance from the house?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. The school was walking distance.
Did they eat lunch at school?
Norman went to high school. How did he get to school? Rats.
Charge, I guess.
Probably went by transportation.
Okay.
And Paul was in the neighborhood, Mount Airy.
Okay.
What else?
Now, in the schools in those days, was there drugs and guns and fighting?
No, you didn't hear of any of that.
Right.
Very rare if you did. I mean, it was, oh my God, what's happening now?
Unlike today, where it's almost common,
No.
kids have to go through metal detectors.
I never had any problem with drugs, drinking.
Right.
Maybe with Paul with cigarettes.
That's oftentimes as bad as it got back then.
Yeah. Norman, I don't remember if he smoked or not.
No,
Probably did.
when they went to elementary school, was it integrated or was it all white?
Integrated.
So it was black and white?
Yeah.
Mainly black and Jewish, probably? Catholic kids went to Catholic school?
Mostly,
Yeah. And,
But we really didn't think about race at the time. You know, I know when Strawberry Mansion, when Norman and Paul went to McIntyre School, that was like walking distance of about a block down.
that was elementary school.
Right. They were mixed. We didn't think anything of it, did we? When the kids went to school and it was mixed, black and white.
They had no other alternative.
It wasn't even a matter of alternative. It was a matter of this is the way it is, and that's it.
Now, after high school, my father, he went to work with Gramps.
He didn't want to go to college.
Okay.
He could have gone. I mean, really was a brain. And he didn't want to go. He says, if it's good enough for Gramps, it's good enough for me.
And this was the rag shop, or were you into the junk business already?
That was all junk
business,
business.
everything.
It was all everything.
And the junk business consisted of buying scrap metal
Yeah.
and then selling it again to the people that recycled it or reused it.
Yeah, wholesalers.
Well, didn't you sell to the government some stuff?
No.
No, like the scrap? No.
So there was a junkyard, and people would come by and just sell you. You'd give them cash,
Yeah.
and then you would in turn sell it. Were you also doing rags then?
Yeah.
And then Norman met Arlene.
Norman met Arlene. She was 15 and he was 17, I think. They started to go together. Then
But she lived in the suburbs, right?
she
Feltonville, was that
lived
the
in
suburbs?
Well, I don't know if it was nicer than Strawberry Mansion, supposedly. Anyway, Norman wanted to go study with Arlene. And,
At 17?
yeah. But she didn't feel as though she wanted to go study yet. But he says, if you don't go study with me, I'm not going to see you anymore. So she came to Mrs. Peck's house in her bobby socks and books one day. And said she wanted to talk to me.
His wife said she's knocked up.
So I says, okay. So she came in, adorable. Mrs. Peck, she says, I don't know what to do. She says, Norma wants to go study. And I said that we're really too young. And he says, well, he's not going to see me anymore if we don't.
No, she's 15 now.
Yeah.
Probably in 10th or 11th grade, or?
Yeah, she was. So anyway, I said to her, look, what do you got to lose? So you'll go study. If you see that you don't care for him and he don't care for you, so you'll break it up.
Uh-huh.
They're still going study.
That's sweet.
Yeah, it was real cute, really it was.
So then they dated just a couple years before they got married? Or
Well, as
3 or
soon
4
as
years?
she graduated from high school, he was 20 and she was 18.
Okay.
So they got married.
That's when they got married. And they were in a little apartment?
They had a small apartment, and before you knew it, they bought a house. And then Howard came along.
Right.
Before Howard came along, they bought
Right.
the house.
I was born in the apartment.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Scotty came along, and little Jonathan came along.
In Mount Airy, so you were living by yourselves. Your kids
Yeah.
were out of the house.
Right.
And then Paul was, there was no
Paul
war
was
going
in
on.
the
He was just
army.
he just,
Yeah.
4 years did he serve in the
Yeah.
army? And that was, I guess, after the war, after the Korean War.
I think it was around 1950.
Late 50s, because I remember him coming back in a uniform sometimes when I was at your house.
You do. Yeah, so in the 50s.
And that was once again after the Korean War. Now, do you remember hearing about World War II? That was the Holocaust. Do you remember
Yeah.
stories? You remember?
Well, I used to hear about it, but I really didn't understand what it was all about.
The
When
whole war.
Norma was born, 1934, you heard a little bit about killing the Jews, and all that.
In Europe.
But I was really very young then too, and I really didn't. I was like 19. I didn't understand what it was all about. But when Paul was born in 39, then you heard about the killings, and the Holocaust and all that. But still, I was still too young to realize what it was all about. We just didn't think that these things were really happening.
Mm-hmm.
But they were. That's about all I can remember about that until later, when it really came out.
After the war, then it really came out. Now, at that time, what was Philadelphia like when you were young? You used to go into the center of Philadelphia for shopping and shows?
Oh, yeah. Didn't think anything of it.
Were you able to walk the streets at night?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you didn't get, especially in Strawberry Mansion, we used to sleep with the doors open, sleep in the hallways because it was so hot in the house. There were no fans and there were no air conditioning.
Now, was there air conditioning, or you just didn't have air conditioning?
No, there was. You never didn't even hear of anybody that had it in their house.
So when it was hot, it was hot.
It was hot. We used to sleep on lawn chairs. The doors open. Door was open all the time.
So crime really wasn't a problem.
No, and yet maybe half a dozen blocks away, black people were living. And yet there was depression time.
Mhm.
Things were not good at the time.
Still, it seems like there was a basic civility about.
I used to, Grants used to work from 5 to 2 every day, during the week.
5 at night to 2 in the morning.
2 in the morning. And I lived around the corner from Arizona Street where I originally lived. And we used to have card games, all the women, the men were working, so we used to play cards during the evening. At 1 o'clock in the morning, I used to run through the alley to my house. The back door was open, go in the house and lock the door and go out.
And your kids were sleeping?
The kids were sleeping.
What about?
So, we didn't have those fears in us. We weren't afraid.
Yeah, completely different type of. What about telephones?
I didn't have a phone for years.
So, but phones existed.
Oh, sure.
But
They'd call me to the phone at the corner drugstore, the candy store.
So the corner store would have a phone.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody would call you. Somebody at the store would have to answer the phone.
You would give them a nickel for calling you.
Okay.
And you would answer the phone.
And you run to the store.
Right.
Have your conversation and hang up.
Right.
And in those days, there was no cordless phones or.
No.
This was just an old-fashioned.
It was just a phone, and we were glad to have it. Yeah. Here I was ready to give birth to your father. And it was a storm outside. And I really didn't know if I was ready to go to the hospital or not.
You were home at this time?
We had this 2-room apartment. It was pouring out a storm. I said to Grams, you better go down to the drugstore and find out what to do. I don't know what to do. The water bag burst. I thought, I'm wetting myself, that's all. So he went down to the drugstore and he asked Mr. Pitchnick. His name was. He says, my wife is whatever, and better get her to the hospital right away. So he had to make a call there for a taxi cab. There were cabs.
So you didn't have a car then?
No. And they took me to the hospital.
And this was Einstein Hospital in South
yeah,
Philadelphia?
It wasn't in South Philadelphia. It was in North Philadelphia, on Broad Street.
Oh, the same Einstein that's there today? Okay. And you came home with the baby in a taxi cab?
Yeah, I had to. There was nobody there to take me home. And that's the way it was. It was much different than today.
And there was a bris at your house, I take it?
Right in the house.
In the house.
We bought him for Gramps' father's gold watch.
Okay.
In fact, it's still around.
Huh. And so nowadays, when you have babies, there's monitors. You can put a monitor in the room so you can go downstairs and you can hear the baby.
It's
obviously.
It's a what do you call it? Not a monitor. Is it called
Yeah, it's called a monitor.
monitor?
Yeah. Obviously, that didn't exist back then. But there were strollers and carriages to walk the baby.
Yeah. I had a stroller. I had a carriage. And
About baby food.
there was baby food.
You were able to buy baby food?
Well, I didn't buy it because I couldn't afford it, really. I used to cook it myself and strain it.
Now, was there vaccinations back then for the kids? I guess polio vaccination was discovered already. Well, maybe
I think
not.
a little bit later.
Or later.
A little bit later. And Gramps made a very poor living for about 15 years after we were married. Then things got better. I remember he used to bring home $12 a week. It had to be $12
To meet the bills.
to meet $3 for rent, $3 for food, and we had to pay off the kitchen set and the ice box. And one more thing, it was $3 a week.
Okay.
Huh?
Car fare.
And car fare, he had to get $3.
Know about credit cards?
No, we did not.
There probably wasn't even credit cards then, huh?
I don't remember any. I don't know.
So you
Things got a little better as time went on. And he really was never out of work.
you mean before he started his own company? He was,
No, before he, once he started to work, he worked. I mean, that was it.
I mean, once he started in his own business.
Not his own business.
Once he started
before
to
his
work.
business.
Okay.
Once he got a job in the junk business, sorting rags, or doing what he'd done. And then after the war is really when he started to do well.
And that's with the
And he
junk
went into his
and
own
the rags.
business.
Okay.
And things got better for us after that, financially.
And you were able to, as they were invented, so to speak, you had a television
Oh yeah.
and a refrigerator
We got a television in the 40s.
in the 40s.
And the first refrigerator that we got from Sears. That was in, maybe 45.
Talk a little louder.
Am I supposed to talk loud? Oh, you have to
It's
hear
over
me.
there.
They hear me, don't they?
It's probably picking it up okay.
Yeah. 45. We got our first refrigerator, which was marvelous.
Now, you were in Strawberry Mansion then?
Yeah.
Okay. Even in 1945, did most families have refrigerators?
Not most, no, but I was able to get them.
Okay.
Then I guess everything fell into place after that.
What about vacations?
Well, we used to go down to Atlantic City for
Atlantic
a week
City.
or two.
And you'd stay in a little hotel or a rooming house or something?
The rooming house.
With the kids?
With the kids. Gramps hated it
Why?
because the beds were always wet, damp,
And Sandy?
sandy. He would rather be home.
Uh-huh.
But we went down. Then later we went down nicer, as time went on.
Uh-huh. So then, so after Mount Airy, so then your grandchildren were born, myself and Scott and Sherry,
right.
Lisa and Johnny.
All the kids.
And, but then you had to move out of Mount Airy.
Well, we didn't have to move, but
Neighborhood
everybody
change.
was moving, so we moved too.
Right.
And bought a house in the Northeast. And we're still here. From here to Goldstein.
Oh, goodness.
You might as well face it, what the hell. I guess you heard I got a new apartment. I took
Yeah.
care of everything.
No, I didn't hear.
Oh, didn't you?
Yeah.
She even picked out the caskets.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
So it's all set, huh?
Save everybody a job. I still got a little time.
I hope so. You had a profession. You were an electrologist.
Oh, yeah.
How old were you when you started that?
57. How old was I? I think I was in my 40s.
And electrolysis is what? Could you describe that?
Removing superfluous hair from the face and body.
Okay.
Well, Norma got married, and Paul went into the Army. I had absolutely nothing to do. I was bored stiff. Besides having the little babies around the corner. So Graham said to me, you always wanted to do electrolysis. Why don't you go to school? Take it up. So I said, that's a good idea. And I went for 1 year.
There was a school in Philadelphia?
It was in town. Ninth and Walnut. Used to go by bus every day. So then I started to do the work at home.
So you learned
I learned how to do I learned the whole hairdressing practice, but I only wanted to practice electrolysis.
and you knew that there were people out there that needed the service.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a very lucrative field if you open an office and all that stuff, but I never did because Gramps was the kind of guy needed his dinner at one time.
Well, you opened the office in your house.
So I opened it
in one of the
and I
bedrooms.
built up a nice little practice.
You had all the machines in the bedrooms,
Yeah.
I remember.
Still have it.
And women would come.
And the women would come and get treated.
And they'd pay you.
Well, naturally.
Yeah. It was never a business that wasn't a legitimate business. It was all cash.
Yeah.
And you never had a problem with that throughout the years. You never formed a business. And then when you moved to the Northeast, you continued.
Yeah. And I'm still continuing.
You still have patients?
Yeah.
Oh.
Not as many, but I have patients.
How many do you see?
Oh, a month, maybe 10.
Okay. And you haven't been with you for a while?
They've been with me for the last 20 years.
Huh.
Or more.
It wasn't for you, they'd all have long beards.
That's right. Yeah. I enjoyed that work. It was very nice.
Now I remember growing up, every Friday night you used to have dinner at your house.
Every Friday night we would have dinner, and every Friday night some of the grandchildren would sleep over. But they knew they could not bother grandmama
Well, you had a patient.
while I had a patient. So I would put them in their crib. They'd stay there until they were so good, really, all the kids. Do you remember that?
I remember when I was, I guess, 5, 6, or 7, when I would understand what it meant when you had a patient. I didn't bother you.
Right.
Watch television or something like that.
But they would. Now the girls wouldn't stay up there in the room, in the bedroom. I couldn't have them stay over as much as the boys. The boys sort of knew what I was doing.
Now, every Friday night, that lasted for several years, correct?
The Friday night dinner?
Dinners, yeah.
Well, I'm not talking about the dinner now. Friday night I had dinner for all the children. And then little by little, so this one had a Cub Scout meeting, and this one had this kind of a meeting, and gradually the kids were not too happy about it. I don't know about too happy, but they had things to do. And then it got a little too much for me. The family got larger. So, just continued it and had one family at a time. And then I don't make it that much. So,
Did you grow up in a kosher home?
No. It was kosher to a point, but not where my mother changed dishes and all that stuff. She only bought kosher foods. But with her family, it was just too much to start changing. And,
so many kids.
Yeah.
Did she ever work outside of the house?
Work? My mother?
Other than the kids? Too busy?
She was too busy having babies and working in a house.
Yeah.
No, she was a great person.
You had to take care of 8 kids. You had to...
Well, she was just a great person besides the kids.
And what do you remember about her?
I remember she was a real good mother, that's all.
And did she eventually learn English?
Yeah,
good
she
enough to
spoke
communicate?
English, yeah. But broken, it was always broken. I think my father done better than she did because he was out more, amongst people.
And that means that you had to understand Yiddish and speak Yiddish.
Oh, I speak Yiddish. I'm losing it a lot because I don't use it.
Yeah.
But speak Yiddish. In fact, it's a beautiful language. It's a shame it's going out.
Yeah.
But a lot of the Russians don't talk Yiddish.
They talk Russian.
They talk Russian.
Yeah.
And the Yiddish that they do speak is so hard to understand. I mean, I can't, very, very hard to understand.
Did your parents have siblings? Brothers, sisters?
My father had a brother and a sister in Russia.
They never came over?
But my father's mother came over with a brother. And they stayed for about 5 years, I think, and they went back to
They
Russia.
went back? Why would someone go back?
Well, they went back. It was, my grandmother had a daughter that got sick in Russia. That was my father's sister. And she just felt she had to go back. She didn't want to stay here.
Man, she probably never came back to the States after that.
My father was very angry when she left.
He thought she'd have a better life here?
Yeah. And my mother's sibling, she only had some cousins in Chicago.
So when they immigrated, they went to Chicago first?
They did.
I mean, they just settled. Why did they settle in Chicago?
I don't know. And that was the only, I never knew my mother's parents.
Well, they never came over, correct?
No, but I mean, never knew. I think they were gone when she came over.
Okay.
From the pogrom. She had one brother that they took his head off right in front of them. See, it's you can't visualize these things, and you can't visualize that they are true.
Right. And almost government sanctioned. The government wouldn't even do anything about it.
I guess not. I don't know. And then after a while, my mother and father had a 50th wedding anniversary. And all her siblings were there, her grandchildren. You were there. You don't remember it, though. There was really a gang of us. I remember my father said to my mother, "See, from 2 people what happened here?"
Okay.
All right.
So, what year were you born?
1911.
1911. In Philadelphia?
No, New York.
New York. And that's where your parents emigrated from?
Yeah.
Into New York.
Yeah.
And you made it to Philadelphia when you met Mom and...
Oh, no. My parents moved from New York to Philadelphia. Of course, I went with them.
Right.
And that's where we lived.
How old were you when you moved to Philadelphia?
Oh, I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5.
Oh, young, okay. And they emigrated from where?
Russia.
Russia. So they, do you remember, Russian or Yiddish was spoken in your house?
Yeah, all the time.
All the time, even when you were older?
Yeah.
But your parents obviously knew English well enough
Oh,
that
yeah. They understood it, but they couldn't talk.
they couldn't talk English well. Huh. And what did your father do for a living?
He was a tailor.
A tailor. And your mother, did she work?
Housewife.
And he was a tailor in New York,
Yeah.
and he moved to Philadelphia to get a better tailoring job?
No, he just wanted to move to Philadelphia. Why? I don't know.
Okay. And where in New York, was it the Lower East Side where all the Jewish immigrants lived? Do you remember?
No, we lived in the Bronx,
In the Bronx.
east of 198th Street. Now there's a hospital there.
Uh-huh. Okay. And so then, growing up, you had 2 brothers, Uncle Ben
Yeah,
and Phil. And you were the youngest?
the youngest.
Youngest. And all of you went to school in Philadelphia?
Yeah, went to school.
Now, did you finish school?
Public school, that's all.
Elementary?
Yeah.
6th grade?
No, I went to the 7th.
7th grade? And in those days, you were able to just stop and nobody bothered you,
Yeah.
unlike today where... And you started working right away?
Yes. I worked in a printing place.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't do a hell of a lot there. Errand boy. And That's it. I never went to high school because I didn't have the time.
You had to work
Had to work.
to make money.
Had to eat.
How about Ben and Phil? Did they go to high school?
Ben went to high school. Phil didn't. Ben went, I don't know how far he went to high school. But Phil, I don't know about Phil's education.
He was the oldest.
No, he was the middle.
Ben was the
Ben
oldest.
was the oldest.
And then you met Mama when you were how old? 15?
About 16, 17.
Okay. And then you moved to New York with her for a while?
Our family moved to New York, but we remained in Philadelphia
Okay.
after we were married.
Right. So before you had the junk shop, what did you do?
I worked for somebody in a junk shop
Well, when did you work at the Navy Yard?
during the war.
While you were still working at the junk shop?
No,
And the junk business stopped during the war?
didn't stop, but you had to get a defense job or you'd go to the army.
Ah.
So I quit the place where I was working for, and I went in defense work.
And, I mean, even healthy young males were able not to go into the army if you worked for the defense industry. If there were jobs available in the defense.
Job, yeah.
So,
If you didn't have a job, they'd find you a job.
yeah. And what did you do at the Navy Yard?
Welding.
Ships?
Yeah.
And then you'd repair them and then you'd go back out to war, I
Right.
guess. Well, there must have been thousands and thousands of men down there working.
Oh my God. When the shift used to change, it looked like all the people in the world were there.
Huh. It was an around-the-clock type operation, probably.
And I liked it. I enjoyed it. Worked with a lot of people. You hear a lot of stories.
And because it was a wartime situation, was the pay higher than ever?
3 times as high as the other job.
So, where were you living at that time with Mom?
Shirley Mansion.
Renting a house?
Well, first we had an apartment. Then we rented. We didn't rent no houses. From the apartment we bought a house on Patton Street. No, we rented on Arizona Street. And then from there we bought a little house on Patton Street.
Remember what that cost, that house?
11,000 something, 9,000. Something like that. And on Patton Street was our first little home we bought.
Row home.
Row home. Yeah, we enjoyed it. It was nice. It was small. And
Were Paul and Norman already born when you bought Patton Street?
no,
Oh, so they were born at Patton Street.
Patton Street. No, they were born on Arizona Street.
Oh, so then they moved with you to Patton Street.
Yeah.
How many bedrooms did those little houses have?
2.
2 bedrooms.
So the boys in one and we in another.
Yeah. Living room, dining room, and a kitchen.
Downstairs.
Basement, probably.
Yeah.
And from Patton Street, it was Temple Road?
Temple Road.
Yeah.
From Temple Road, we went up here.
So here. So, after the war, you went back into the junk business?
Yeah. Then I went for myself.
Yourself?
I was working for somebody all the time, but now I had a couple of bucks.
Saved from the Navy Yard.
And I went to work for a guy that had a junk shop. A goy. You shouldn't say goy. And then he never took care of his business. So he wanted me to go in as a partner with him, so I shouldn't steal.
That's smart.
Otherwise I would have stolen.
What was his name?
Kirkpatrick. And then he died, and he had in a contract that he gave me that the place cost him $43,000, and he wants to sell it. It has to be for that price. $43,000. My God, it's a drop in the bucket. And the contract read that he's going to get a customer for $43,000 and then submit it to me. If I accept it, he's got to give it to me. And if I don't accept it,
Or give it to the customer.
give it to the other guy.
Yeah.
Well, every once in a while they would send up a guy to look at the place. So I took about 10 or 15 buckets of half with water, and I put them around the place. And I said, watch the buckets, you know, it's for the leaks in the roof. And the guy would say, all these leaks you got on the roof? I said, you're coming out here when it rains. And nobody bought it on Caravat.
So what happened? So you took the...
His daughter wanted to sell the place bad. I said, well, look, sell the place to me, that's all. I can get so for the so. I said, you can't. I said, you can get so much and so much, get it so much, and then submit the price to me.
Now you're, at this time, operating the business yourself?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. But they own the building?
Yeah.
Okay. Is this Fletcher Street?
Yeah.
Okay.
So she couldn't get nobody, so finally they sold it to me.
Okay.
So now it's mine.
Okay. And what was it called again? I forget.
Well, he called it Spencer Paper.
And you called it
Max Beck?
Waste and Salvage?
Well, we used to be United Waste and Salvage.
Yeah.
And,
So describe the junk business, because it really doesn't exist much today,
oh, yeah.
the way it does, the way it did.
Yeah. You stand out in your place, and junkers go out and pick up paper, iron, metals, rags, and they sell it to me. Now, I buy it off of them, and then I sell it to wholesalers.
Okay.
And then there's a profit in between.
And where do they get their product, the junkers? People's trash, mainly?
People's trash, yeah.
Okay. And they come to you, they weigh it, you weigh it, you pay them, and they get on their way. Do any of these junkers make a living at that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Some of the better grade junkers, some of them was not finest class. They would make $10 a day, they would spend $10 a wine.
Yeah.
But there's other guys had families, and they would work hard.
And what, they had a little truck and they would just
Yeah.
go around collecting? You took newspapers also?
Everything.
Did you do any processing to it?
No.
You just paid for it, sorted it,
Yeah.
and sold it?
They baled the paper, baled the rags, and then I went into the rag business. Rags I used to sort
And where did you get the rags?
from the peddlers. And then I used to buy wholesale from different junk shops. And at times it wasn't making no money. It got so to a point where junk business was bad. Until the end.
And so then Paul and Norman came in.
Norman came first. And he stood with me for a while, and then Paul came. And they remained with me.
And then you sold Fletcher Street.
Saw Fletcher Street. No, we had a fire at Fletcher Street.
Okay.
And we bought West Philadelphia.
West Philadelphia, 25th Street?
Yeah.
Yeah. Southwest Philadelphia.
So we bought that place. But only for rags, no junk business. And we stood there a while.
Well, when and how did the foam get started? Was that in Fletcher Street? Yeah, yeah.
No, a friend of Joe, a friend of Arlene's father, Johnny Howe. He had a friend, a next door neighbor, that was in a pillow machine, a pillow manufacturing. So one time we were sitting around with Norman. He says, Norman, can you get me any foam rubber? He says, I'll get you anything you want. Then he advertised to the peddlers, we buy foam rubber for $1 a pound.
$1 a pound?
Yeah.
1 cent a pound.
And nobody was buying it. $1 a pound, we were the only ones. So they sold it to us. And we used to sell it to Joe Cohen for like 5-6 cents a pound. Until Joe Cohen gave us an idea. He said, why don't you buy a shredding machine and shred it? I'll give you 12 cents a pound.
What did he do with it?
He used to make pillows.
He made the pillows, okay.
So he used to sew it, shred it himself.
Okay.
He had a homemade machine. It wasn't doing much production. Then we bought a shredding machine. We shredded it and sold it to Joe Cohen.
And this was on Fletcher Street? Yeah, because you
No.
were... No?
No.
Your first shredder was on 25th Street?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we had shredding machines on Fletcher Street.
Yeah?
Yeah. And then what did we do then?
And then that grew and you bought more shredding machines
Yeah, yeah.
and
That's where we got into the shredding.
you found more customers other than Joe Cohen, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so no one went out on the street in New York. And you seen anybody, the pillow manufacturers.
Uh-huh.
Where you buy it from road from? We sell it. How much you pay? 10 cents a pound. We got it for 9.
Uh-huh.
So we got a customer. Then we couldn't shred it fast enough.
Well, you once told me that story when you bought your first shredder. You asked the guy how much would it shred, and he said as much as you put in it. But the only thing is that it moves slow, so as much as you put in it didn't really matter. Teach you, you have to ask the right questions.
Yeah.
He told you the truth, right?
Yeah.
As much as you put in it.
How much can you use a shredder machine? Like I want to know what production would do throughout the day. He said, how much? Whatever you put in, it'll shred. Little did I think if the guy a slow bear throws in 20 pounds a day, that's all you're going to get is 20 pounds a day. And,
but also, you bought a lot of scrap paper, too. And you were shredding up the paper, correct?
Well, yeah, it wasn't newspaper, though. It was like from Scott paper. And we still buy from Scott paper. Like they make toilet paper and towels and so on. We buy their scrap. And we shred it up. And we sell it to pillow manufacturers.
Yeah. So the foam and the paper then came on board and the junk business pretty much ended.
Yeah. Couldn't make no money in the junk business, so I quit it. And now we still shred.
Oh, yeah.
Paper, I think it's paper. What else is shred down there?
Foam and paper and fabric foam.
Yeah.
And at 25th Street, that's when you finally retired, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You were just working part-time.
No, not on 25th Street. We moved out of there. We went to, what do you call that place?
Leicester?
West Philadelphia. Woodland Avenue.
Woodland Avenue, yeah.
Yeah.
So you were working a little bit in the beginning at Woodland?
Yeah.
Okay.
I helped set him up. And then little by little I edged out. Retired from there. So now I'm going to pull it there. We still run it.
Yeah. Now, when I was growing up, I remember you used to belong to the Masons.
Yeah.
What was that?
It's an organization that can go for meetings, and they do a lot of charity work. And I enjoyed it. They still belong here.
Oh, you still belong? You ever go to the meeting?
Well, very seldom. Because it's in town and I don't drive. I sold my car. So I don't drive. My mom takes me wherever I have to go. Important places. That's all I got is important places.
So you were with the Masons for a long time, right?
Oh, yeah. About 35 years now.
And it's a charitable organization. They run Shriners Hospital and things like that. And then, shh.
Ed, make it lower.
And then you got involved with pistols.
Yeah.
And what happened for a long time, right? What, at least 10 years?
I wanted to buy a pistol, one gun to keep in the house. So they tell me I have to learn how to shoot, so and so on. So I bought the gun, and I found this gun club, and I went there to practice every day. Then I seen what they do, so I liked it. So I bought 5 more guns. And I went into pistol matches. I went into matches with our club against Allentown police, and with some big shots. We used to win trophies. I had over 100 trophies down the basement. I gave them away.
Wow. You sold them to the guy that bought your junk shop, huh?
No, I gave them away.
Yeah? Well, who would want a trophy with your name on it?
Well, there was only like tags on it.
Oh, so you could redo it or something?
Yeah, you put them off and put a lot of tags on it. And, then I got tired of the guns. I sold the guns.
Yeah. You were you were making your own bullets?
Yeah.
Right?
I was loading my own shells.
And then you, as you got older, you just stopped going to the range.
Yeah.
Now, when you were running United Waste and Salvage on Fletcher Street, it was you, Paul, and Norman. You had drivers?
Oh, yeah.
You had drivers. Secretaries?
No.
You guys ran the office.
And an accountant come in once a month.
Uh-huh.
That's all.
And in those days, there was no computers,
No.
businesses, and fax machines, and all that. So it was pretty much a simple operation. It was all cash, too, right?
Yeah.
And I remember once you got held up.
Yeah, one time. Guy came in and put a gun right to my head over here. He's open the safe. I says, okay. So the real money
Uh-huh.
I had in the back.
Uh-huh.
And in the safe I had $15, $20 with the change. So I opened up the safe, they took everything out of there, about $40, $50. And they left, and then the cops came. How much did they take? $5,000. You keep that much money here? I said, it's business. And I wanted the thieves to read about it, so they should come back and ask for more. Then I was packing the gun.
Uh-huh.
And I killed them.
And did you have insurance back then for that kind of stuff?
Only $100
For $100.
in cash.
Okay.
That's all they took was cash.
Right. So the insurance company.
Yeah, Paul was in it too.
Right.
He took his money and my money.
Right.
And he left.
Then, as you got older, I remember when I was little, you used to travel a lot around the world. You went to Israel,
Oh yeah, with Mama.
Portugal.
Yeah, we went to Portugal, Spain. Where else did we go? London, England. We went around halfway around the world.
But now you only go to Fox Chase and Bustleton. So you enjoyed that travel. That must have been
Yeah,
fascinating.
had a good time.
Uh-huh. And so then, as you got older and retired, you don't travel much. Atlantic City every now and then. You go?
Atlantic City once in a while. Can't too much traveling for me now.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, just to back up a little bit, I guess a big event from you was your first son's bar mitzvah, right? Back
Yeah.
then there were big events.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Well, not big like today.
No, it seems when Norman was about mitzvah, he made a small affair.
Yeah.
Maybe 30, 40 people.
Okay.
My uncle, my aunt, cousins.
There
That's
was
all.
no Morty Portnoy.
When Paul got married, then we made a big affair.
When he got married or bar mitzvah?
When Paul was bar mitzvah.
Okay.
And, then we had a big affair.
Uh-huh. And then the weddings were big in those days too,
Yeah.
right? You had big affairs.
When Norman was married, we had a big affair. Paul. Your bar mitzvah, I forgot.
Right. It was a smallish affair.
Was it a small affair,
Yeah.
big affair?
West Oakland Jewish Community Center. Remember that? And then you had your first grandson. What's his name again? Well, okay. I don't have any more questions. Anything you want to add for the camera?
Man, not a hell of a lot. The only thing is, before I got married, I had it tough.
You can remember that long ago before you got married?
It's a good many years ago.
Jeez.
I remember one thing, if I didn't work, I didn't eat.
Uh-huh.
So I had to go out and hustle. Do this, do that, do different odd jobs. And we would buy a loaf, a loaf of bread for a nickel or a dime. So you buy it, go half with another guy, buy two of them half, me half. Then we go to the fruit store and buy an onion. And put the onion in, and we would have an onion sandwich. That was it.
Well, this must have been when you were a teenager, right?
Yeah, before I even met my mom.
Uh-huh.
And that's why I didn't have time to go to school.
Uh-huh. And
What else?
your parents, did your mom die first? Or your...
My mother died first,
Right.
then my father died.
Were they alive when you got married?
no,
Oh, so they died when you were young.
yeah. And my brothers, one of them went to New York to live, one went here to live, and I went to my mom's house.
Uh-huh.
Her mother and father stood there for a while.
Tell them with the 8 children and you were the 9th.
Yeah. 8 children. I used to go to bed, and the bed is empty. I wake up in the morning, there's 6 kids laying. I was always wondering, where the hell did they come from?
So you lived there until you moved out together, right?
Yeah.
Did you get married first before you moved out?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, he moved out and we got married about a year or 2 later.
Okay.
What else? Is there anything important?
Well, just tell him how you became so successful.
Yeah, we went into his business history.
And,
How I became so successful. I sent my wife out to work.
yeah. You've done pretty good.
Well, in trying times were between depressions and...
Well, 33 was a bad 29 to I think up until after the war. During the war, I think things got better.
And then after, of course, that's when the country
Yeah,
began
well,
to really
yeah.
grow. And that's when you were living on Temple Road after the war.
No, we lived on Patton Street.
During the war, right. When did you move?
During the war, well, we moved around 54, I think.
Okay.
55.
So you must have moved there right around the same time as my parents.
Well, we did.
Oh, no, I wasn't born on Fayette Street. I was born... Okay.
Right. Before that. What year were you born?
56.
You were born in 56. You
Yeah.
couldn't have been born.
Yeah?
Yeah,
56.
56. They were married in 54.
Okay.
Well, so we moved in about 53, 52.
So you moved in there first?
Yeah. So they got married and Paul went into the